You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show, and today, unfortunately, I will not be joined by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox. But as we are wrapping up Season 8, I can't believe it, another season's almost done of the show. I have a very exciting guest today. So before I introduce him, let me thank today's podcast partner. And today's podcast is powered by Summit Fire Consulting, a national fire protection engineering and code consulting firm helping people design and maintain complex buildings. Their experts interpret fire and building codes, design suppression and smoke management systems, and ensure safe egress in everything from healthcare facilities and historical buildings to stadiums and multifamily housing. So we thank Summit for their Phoenix Society partnership. So without further ado, let me welcome on today's guest. Today we are joined by Damon Spring, who is 29 years old and has been a volunteer firefighter for 8 years. During his rookie year, he was involved in a wildfire burnover sparked by a helicopter crash on August 18th, 2018, later known as the Sheep Creek Fire. Damon became a peer supporter for Phoenix Society because he wanted to help other survivors, and that's something he hopes to continue growing in. He recently started a social media page called Scar Warriors as a way to share his story, help others, and offer a little hope to fellow survivors or anyone who's struggling mentally. So Damon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I know I just read your bio, but to get started, I'd love for you just to share a little bit more about yourself and specifically what drew you to becoming a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah, I've had a few family members through the years that did it, and ever since I was a little kid, it just was something that always interested me. Always wanted to do it, and I was fortunate to be able to get on as soon as I turned 21. Um, so yeah, it's became a big part of my life now, and yeah, it's just something that I love to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just kind of curious too. Can you just tell us a little bit more, like what, or even like paint the picture of a volunteer firefighter and what that looks like? And, I don't even really truly know like how those shifts or like how the volunteer aspect works. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so every department's different, depending on the size and stuff, I think, but for our department, it's whenever you can go. We have 2 meetings a month and sometimes special training meetings. Um, and you do have to make a certain percentage of calls. And our department, we get to see a little bit of everything. We're on a busy highway, so we get to do everything from house fires, wildland fires, gas leaks, vehicle accidents, so a little bit of everything. Um, and yeah, the schedule is most of us have full-time jobs, other jobs, and you just show up when you're able to help out.
Mm-hmm. So does that look like let's say there is a call that comes in? Because I know the fire department actually by my house growing up was a volunteer department as well. And I remember like I'm pretty sure they had like a bell or something. I'm sure they called folks too, but they would like a siren, I guess, that they would alert
hmm
the community that there was a call that came in and that the volunteers had to, if they were available, to come in and help take that scene. Is that something like how yours works too,
Yeah,
or
so
have it?
So back in the day before I started, they did actually have that. There was a big loud bell and the whole town could hear it, I guess, is from what I was told. But now we just have pagers and a lot of our
Mm,
pages just go through our phone now. So we have the pager and the phone is like our backup as well.
gotcha. Well, take us back to August 2018. I know you in your bio mentioned that that was your rookie year, but just tell us a little bit more about, that Sheep Creek fire and your burn injury specifically.
Yeah, so it happened pretty early in my career. I'd only been on a handful of fires beforehand. Had been on a few wildland fires, but nothing this big. Um, yeah, like I said, it started off as a helicopter crash. Some Nevada Department of Wildlife biologists were up counting sheep on the mountain, and their helicopter went down. Um, I was with my chief. It was just my chief and I at the time. Um, we got up there and we were trying to obviously get to them to help them because we're surrounded by fire. Um, and it was in the afternoon and the wind shifted, came right for us, and there was no escaping it. So and I think the Sheep Creek fire ended up being 58 or 59,000 acres, so it was a pretty good size one.
Hmm. For sure. So just tell us a little bit too about, your burn injury, if you're comfortable with that, in terms of like, were you airlifted out? What was that recovery like? Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so after we got our pumper got burned over. Um, Unfortunately, we did not have radio contact where we were at, so we could not get to dispatch. Um, so me and him, we took off walking. We actually had to walk about a mile after getting burnt. Um,
Wow.
Hiked up a pretty steep ridge to be able to get cell service. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, so I actually called my family first as soon as I got cell service, kind of be prepared to tell my goodbyes or whatnot. And after I got off the phone with them, was finally able to reach a dispatch. Um, and they got in contact with a helicopter. Um, and I was ended up being taken off by the chopper. It did take them quite a while to find us in the spot that we were in. Um, but basically got flown off the mountain into our local airport, hooked up in the local ambulance and everything, and then got thrown on a medical plane and flown to the burn center in Salt Lake City. And I spent a little over a month there. Um, and after I got out of the hospital, I think it was about 3 years before I was fully ready to go
Mm.
again. Had quite a few Z-plasty surgeries, a lot of laser treatments, which I was actually one of the kind of their first test patients with the laser stuff. So that was kind of cool. It did help out quite a bit. So
That's awesome. Well, the laser part's awesome, to clarify. Um,
yeah.
and how far is, Salt Lake from that for your I guess your burn center from where you live? In terms of like, what was that like with having your friends and family? I don't know how far away they were, but, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was tough. It's about a 4 hour drive. In a
Mm.
plane, of course, I think it took 30, 40 minutes or something. But
Mhm.
yeah, I had I had family, close family that were in Reno at the time, which is about 3 hours the other direction. So I was in the hospital in Utah for a while before anyone could really show up. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it was nerve-wracking. It was a crazy experience for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, you know, firefighters are normally the ones who are rescuing others, and then that kind of flipped in a switch for you, and then needing to get that support, and especially, getting found and just getting airlifted to the hospital and things like that. So, I guess what was that like for you, emotionally early on of just, going from trying to stop fires and preventing them to then suddenly needing the one needing the support?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. Definitely was not expecting it, but definitely learned that it can happen to anyone at any time. So, uh, but yeah, we went from trying to, thinking we were going to be the ones helping someone that evening, that afternoon, to being the one that needed help. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but after the fact and being in the hospital, and even when I got out, even to this day, the support of the fire community and the first responder community was pretty impressive. From law enforcement to EMS, everything. I had a lot of support from the East Coast firefighters that didn't even know me reach out to me. Um, Clark County Fire Department Vegas was there for me a lot. Had a lot of people, so that definitely helped.
Mm-hmm. That sense of community is certainly can be a game changer in recovery for sure. And
Mhm.
then it's my understanding too that now you're back to firefighting. So what, I guess maybe mentally and emotionally kind of was that decision something that was never in question that you were going to go back, or what's that like for you?
So when I was in the burning, I know a lot of my family members didn't want me to go back into it, and um,
Mm-hmm.
I can't really say I thought twice about it. I felt like after the burn injury and the fact that I was still living and still here, I felt like it was my second chance, kind of, to keep on doing it. And so yeah, I got back into it. My first wildfire call after that was a little kind of nerve-wracking, and I still have calls today that are a little harder than others, but for the most part, it's just have to have a strong mindset to do it, I guess. But,
Mm-hmm. No, certainly. I mean, I think in general, even without a burn injury, being a firefighter takes a lot of courage and bravery. And then, obviously, I was burned when I was 3 years old. And I know growing up, I wouldn't say I was scared of fire, but I certainly had, sometimes it was triggering. Like even my injury had nothing to do with fireworks, but like around the 4th of July, I'm always like, extra cautious. Just, I think that's like in the nature of someone who's had a burn injury. So, I give you a lot of kudos
uh,
for, being able to go back and, just continue on even after your injury.
yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit more too, just about, the physical aspects of your recovery. Were you, after you went home, and I know you mentioned those laser surgeries, were you going back to Utah for those? Just kind of what was like that physical healing process like for you?
Yeah, it was rough. I was at one point I was driving to Utah every month. When I first got out, I think it was every week, and then later it got to every month, and then every 3 months. But yeah, I had a lot of problem with my scar tissue building up. I guess, being young, um, builds up faster, I guess. I don't know. But um, I had to have several Z-plasies because my scar band on my arm would get so tight like a rope to where I couldn't extend my arm out all the way or bend my wrist. Physical therapy every day for uh, a good 2 years. And then um, I think by the end of it, it was probably a total of 3 years before I was fully, you know, back to normal. And I still have a little bit of restriction on my wrist, um, but we got it the best that we could. So
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely a long process. Sometimes it feels like it will never end.
Mm-hmm. No, I can certainly relate to that. Yeah, and it's sometimes, like when you take two steps forward, but then you take a step back, or something goes wrong, or surgery doesn't, maybe turn out like you expected, can be really challenging, both physically and, emotionally and mentally, when things aren't going to
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, I had a lot of times where I thought I was good, this time it was gonna work, and then it was just like a slap to the face where it set you back, and then, you were set back another 6 months, and so it's pretty frustrating experience.
Hmm. Certainly. Well, I know I also when got connected with you, that was through Sarah, who runs our Phoenix Tour program here, and I know you are one of our peer supporters. So, can you just tell us a little bit more about how you got connected with Phoenix Society and especially the Phoenix Tour program?
Yeah, so I reached out to, I guess it would be the coordinator at the U of U for the burn center and asked if there was a way that I could get signed up to be able to come talk to other firefighters and other burn survivors in the burn unit in Salt Lake. And she actually pointed me to Sarah, and got set up. I got set up and did that. I haven't had the chance really to do much with it yet, but it is something I want to grow on and be able to do more on. So,
Mhm. And were you connected with any other survivors? Obviously, I know you mentioned just that, like, the fire service community backing you and supporting you, but, were you with other survivors during, just for emotional support, or what was that like?
yeah, so I actually had, besides all the firefighters that came and visited me in the hospital, I actually had two that were burn survivors um, that came up to the hospital and visited me and got the chance to go outside and talk to them and share our stories. And so it was pretty cool. That helped a lot.
Mhm. And why did you wanna become, a peer supporter and give back and support others?
Mostly just help people and try to um, let them know that they're not alone and that it does get better. I went through a really hard, rough patch, probably I'd say like the 2 to honestly 5 years after I got burnt, where I had a lot of just my mental health was really poor. Got to the point
Mhm.
where didn't really want to be here anymore. Um, Ended up in the ER with a lot of panic attacks almost daily. And not a lot of people know that besides like close family. But um, after I finally figured out to get out of the hole that I was in, I just wanted to be able to share my story and give hope to other people that, they're not alone and does get better.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us today. It's interesting that you bring up that, that 2 to 5 years, because we know from some of the research we've done and the surveys and our State of the Survivor report, for example, is that 2 to 5 years is really, really challenging for survivors. And it's not, yes, that first year may be very challenging physically, but once you go home from the hospital and you try to return to a new normal in your normal life and daily activities, that can be a really, really hard time of that transition of just, the physical healing may not be, I don't want to say not the top priority, but may not be the number one thing on your mind, because now you have the emotional and mental side of healing that is finally, you finally have time to navigate it and try to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Well, kind of during that time, when you were struggling, what are some things that really helped you? Or what advice would you give to other survivors who are listening right now and going through that exact same thing?
Well, for me anyway, I at first I had turned to alcohol a lot and became heavily with involved with alcohol, and I think that's when that started getting really bad. I is probably when I reached my lowest point, and like I said, ER visits almost daily for panic attacks, and um, just was not okay. Just did not want to leave the house. And then family members started noticing it, and they actually reached out to the Wildfire Foundation in Idaho and got me in contact with a guy uh, named Eric. He's actually like a life coach to me now. Helped me a lot, and Dr. Casas at the Ridge helped me a lot. Um, but I think in the end, they kind of helped me get out of the hole I was in. But I had to do all the work. Had to shift my mindset, and I just learned how to be more positive about life and look at it a different way. That I just needed a little guidance on how to see it a different way. And once I was able to do that, I could make life a little more positive. Like I said, I still have rough days. It's every day's not easy, but the biggest thing is just mindset. You got to have the right mindset going forward and um, talk to yourself nicely.
Mm-hmm. Definitely give yourself some grace. That's for sure.
Hmm.
Um, so when you are, maybe having a tough day or a tough week, are there any like coping tools that kind of you try to use to help shift that mindset? I know for me, I talk about this a lot on the show of I love working out in the morning. I like waking up, and if I'm having a bad day or maybe yesterday was a bad day, but I just feel like that like morning movement can really like just put me in a better headspace and get my day started off on a proper foot. So yeah, is there anything like that that really helps you on some of those tougher times?
Yeah, for me, I like to go for a walk, or if I'm in my head to go for a walk. As soon as I wake up, try to get some sunshine. Um, Saunas, I do saunas a lot. I think they help. Um, but yeah, just mostly getting outdoors and
Hmm,
um, just not staying inside.
for sure. So how does the sauna, how do you, I guess, I think sometimes I know I've gone in a few saunas, but the obviously it's high temperature. So how does that work with some of your scarring, or like do you have to do anything differently or anything like that?
So I definitely can't sit in there as long as I used to,
Mhm.
because obviously on our grass we don't sweat, so it does make it a little tougher. Um, but yeah, it's not bad. It just got to be a little more careful, I guess,
Mm,
and drink lots of water. And yeah, like I say, I probably go like only 10 or 15 minutes.
mm.
So whereas
Yeah,
I
and I'm
used to be
sure
able to go like 30.
and
So
like building up a tolerance, I'm sure is important. I would love to sit in a sauna for like a long period of time. That's like the trend now these days too. I can do the
hmm
ice bath part because that obviously is, I mean, can be painful but refreshing. The sauna part though is
yeah.
obviously much more difficult.
hmm
Awesome. Well, I do want to talk a little bit too. I know you started Scar Warriors, so I'd just love for you to tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what inspired you to start it.
Kind of goes along with what I said about being a peer supporter, just help get my story out there. Um, and eventually I want to, have like hats and bracelets or something. Just something for people to follow along and, kind of give them some hope for people that are struggling mentally. It's like brand new. It's just a small little thing right now, so I don't know really where it's going, or, we'll see. But yeah, it's just something I started to share my story and connect with other people struggling.
Mhm. Well, we'll make sure we have the links to it below in our show notes. But how can folks find Scar Warriors? How can they get connected with you?
So right now I just have a Instagram page, um, just Scar Warriors, and it should come up.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely make sure, like I said, that we have that linked so folks can get
All right.
connected. And I know you had mentioned that obviously, yes, Scar Warriors is for burn survivors, but anyone who's struggling mentally. So can you just tell us, kind of why, or just talk a little bit more about like why is it important to make that connection to that mental health?
Just because I definitely know how it is. I definitely went through it for years, and it was just felt like it was way too long to suffer in silence
Hmm.
before I had reached out to anyone. And at times I did feel like I was alone, like I didn't have anyone. And for me, I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to be here anymore. And life sucked for for a few years. Um, and once I got out of that hole, um, I just wanted to be able. I didn't want anyone else to have to go through that or do it alone at least. So I just feel like it's important to be able to know that it's okay to reach out to people and talk to people and that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, to your point, there's always you can reach out to if someone is struggling to reach out, obviously to friends and family, or even your burn center or local burn foundation, because they'll certainly have resources to help you get connected. What you know, I know sometimes, and something I honestly struggle with at times still is feeling always like I don't want to, I guess, necessarily bother others with some of my mental health struggles that I'm going through or something like that. Is that something you can relate to? And if so, I guess what advice would you give to those who are maybe struggling to open up to, even their friends and family?
Yeah, for sure. I went through that for a few years. I felt like if I reached out to anyone, it made me weak. I
Mm,
didn't want to. I didn't want to be a bother to any family members or anyone in that matter. I didn't want to bother anyone. Um,
mhm,
and when you get down in that, when you get in that hole, you, at least me, I felt like no one really cares anyway. Like everyone has their own stuff, no one cares. But I've learned that people really do care, and there is tons of resources and tons of people that you can talk to that would love to hear you. And I just think it's important to not be afraid to speak up, um, because, like I said, there is people out there that would love to help you, and you're not alone. I've learned from to the people that I've talked to over the years, that I've learned that there is a lot of people that are going through the same thing. So it's important to know that you're not alone.
mhm. Certainly. And to our listeners too, I'm obviously gonna, plug Phoenix Society, and we have peer supporters, whether that's in person or virtually, that you want to get connected with. We have a huge community of volunteers that are willing and wanting to help out. So feel free to reach out to us at any time if you are, someone who's just looking to get connected. But Damon, too, I know obviously I'm not trying to make, I want to say assumptions here, but I know with working with some of our fire service community, that sometimes firefighters, especially, can have a hard time opening up and talking about, whether maybe it's a trigger from a fire call that you just got, or, especially if you did have a burn injury and, the mental and emotional side of that, and just trying to, to our point, like not wanting to feel weak by opening up. So what would you want, other, whether they're firefighters or any first responder listening to know about, that it's okay to get support? What else would you want to tell them?
I just highly recommend it. And like I said, no one is alone, especially in this field. I think any of us that are in the first responder world can relate. Some of the things that we see aren't the best. And the first responder world is huge. And yeah, there's plenty of resources out there, plenty of people. I think myself personally, I think it's a really strong thing to do when you're able to confront reaching out to someone and talking. And when you do that, I think for me, I learned that you do share a lot of the same kind of um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of the stuff that you're going through. There's a lot of people in the first responder world that are going through like the exact same thing. So I think it's really important that if you are struggling, um, to not lose hope, just reach out, just
Mhm,
talk to someone, and that it does get better. It can get better if you put in the work.
mhm. No, definitely. Well, I know we are coming up on our time, and I do have two final questions for you. But before I ask you those, what I just random question: what's your favorite part about being a firefighter?
Um, my favorite part is being able to be there for someone on their worst day, being
Mm,
able to help. We can't help all the time, but I just like making a difference in my community, and um, if there's a way that I can help someone that I'm willing to help someone, and I think it's pretty special to be able to help your community and your neighbors.
definitely. Well, and obviously, we want to give a huge thank you to you and your fire department, as well as all of our, first responders listening, because, really everyone in our community is touched by at least one first responder, and we wouldn't be here without you guys protecting us and our communities. So, just want to give a quick thank you to not only you, Damon, but everyone listening today who's a first responder.
For sure.
And before I ask you the final two questions, I just want to open it up and see if there's anything else you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want us to know today.
Not that I can think of. No, I think I covered what I wanted to pretty well, I think.
Awesome. No, it's been so great talking with you. So I'm going to ask you our first of our two final questions. This one's Amber's question. I think it's a tough one to ask and put people on the spot with. So don't blame me for it today. But her
Mm-mm.
question is, if this season of your life had a soundtrack or a song, what would it be?
Like a certain song, like a song title,
Sure. Sure.
or can I just be like a general song,
It can be
like a
general, it
happy
can be
song?
specific, whatever you want.
Um, it would probably be mostly happy, but it might be one of those songs where it kind of starts off happy, or vice versa, starts off sad and ends up happy. Because
Mhm.
to be honest, life is full of ups and downs. Um, I am way better than I was, 3 years ago, but still have bumpy patches that uh, I work through, and just keep a
Mhm.
positive mindset and keep going. So,
For sure, I think everyone listening, regardless if they're a burn survivor or not, can certainly relate to those ups and downs that life likes to throw our way.
yep.
Well, with that said, it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix partner question, today sponsored by Summit Fire Consulting. So their question is, what is one thing you hope sticks with listeners after today?
Um, it would be definitely be to not be scared to reach out to people. Burn survivor or not, um, mental health isn't a joke, and the one thing I'd want to stick with people is to know that you're not alone, and to please reach out if you're going through a hard time, because it'll be worth it.
Definitely. I love that. Well, Damon, thank you so much for connecting with me today and taking the time to record the podcast. It was great having you on, and I so appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. And we will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.